on your connector assembly. So without further ado, we'll go right to looking at the major components of the system, and then we'll look at some options, accessories. We have right here our base robot with the X table and a temporary fixture that's holding one of your assemblies. You'll notice the little cylindrical device is yours that you sent us to retain the connector. The X table moves in the forward and back direction. That's our X direction. Right above that we have our Y axis, Z axis, and rotational axis head, which takes care of the other three axes, Y, Z, and rotation. And mounted on that we have our actual soldering head, which consists of an angle bracket, up-down mechanism, our actual tip, and right here to the side we also have a needle swing mechanism, so the needle can swing out of the way when we opt out to go to an optional brush cleaner, which we will look at later. Also mounted on the head is a small closed circuit camera, and we'll look at that when we get to options. On the base robot, a standard piece of equipment is a blow-off, combination blow-off vacuum station, which we can program the iron to come down into this cavity and blow off excess solder and vacuum it away anytime in the program, as many times as we feel necessary. And that excess solder is then brought up to a little vacuum canister with a paper bag that is replaceable. All our solder winds up there. Right alongside of our soldering head here in our...
That's the feeder.
Yeah, okay, we'll get that. I'm sorry, back up. Up on top of our soldering head here, to the left of it, we have our solder feeder, which delivers the solder at the speed and amount that we program through the teach pendant. There's up to 63 different soldering conditions, so it's very versatile. Also has a run-out sensor and a jam sensor. In the event we have problems, we will get an error light on our controller, which that's where we're going next. Tucked right in here is our soldering controller. All our soldering conditions are stored here. We also have our main on-off, heater on-off, and manual solder feed, forward and reverse. And we also have a display of LEDs which will show us if we, in the event we run out of solder, or if we had a solder jam. That pretty much covers a lot of the major stuff. Right next to that we have our nitrogen generator, which utilizes regular shop air, 80 psi, blocks the oxygen and allows nitrogen to pass through the green hoses, which eventually winds up over here at our nitrogen cap, which breathes nitrogen around the tip. Another thing I failed to point out before was our solder feed tube, which delivers the solder from the solder feeder down through a needle and presents it at the tip. These are interchangeable based on solder diameter. Another one more, and last but not least, of our major components of the system is our teaching pendant, which you can see our coordinates for our work home position, and if I were to scroll to our first point, which will be the soldering point, you can see our coordinates for the soldering point, and also the soldering condition, which we program speed and feed amounts for our operation here. Everything is done through the teach pendant, all programming, including even the iron temperature. And last but not least, another standard piece of equipment is our remote start and emergency stop button. A couple of the extras over here on the right of the machine, we have an optional brush cleaner, which I spoke about before. We can program the iron to come over when this is mounted on the robot, come down and do one or more passes on the brush, depending on what we really want to do. We can make as many passes as we need. And we can also program it to do it any time in the program. Next to that, we have an XYZ position correction mechanism. In the event of a crash or change out of a tip, slightly different on very tiny critical applications, we can program the iron to come down and touch the 3 pads, register the position, and then in the event of a crash or a tip change out, it will check and adjust automatically. Some other options include a solder wire preheater. We can preheat the solder up to 150 C to reduce thermal shock with high temperature applications. We also offer a nitrogen preheater too, which preheats the nitrogen and offers a preheating effect. And another option we have here is the camera, a little closed circuit camera, which delivers our picture here, and we'll probably look at that while we're soldering because it's such a tiny connection, and you'll see it very nice and clear on this 17-inch monitor. Okay, Scott, we're going to watch it solder, I believe it's 6 wires onto the board. Kind of difficult to fixture with a temporary fixture, so we just have them taped in place. Obviously, with a dedicated fixture, we could line up as many wires as we need to. And also, we'll probably be looking at this, right now we're looking at just a temporary fixture. But once we start to run it, I think we'll look at our video screen, and you'll get a much clearer picture of what's going on. So let's run it and see what we get. Okay, that concludes the quick demonstration, and we'll touch base with you very soon. Thanks.